Okay. Morning. Are we good to go? Welcome everybody. Place and Resources, this council's most favourite committee meeting on a lovely sunny day. Right, we'll start off. To remember to use the microphones in the right way, but everybody here knows that. So, item number 1, apologies, Lindsay.
Chairman, there have been no apologies for absence.
Thank you. Just for your note, officers attending today, we've got John Selgren here, our Executive Director of Place, who I have to say has come with a bit of a suntan, if you don't mind me saying, John. We'll be talking holidays later. No? Okay. Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic, and Lindsay Watson, our Senior Democratic Services Officer. Item number 2, the minutes of the last meeting. Everybody agreed that they're a true record and I'll sign afterwards? Super, moving on. Declarations of interests. Now, as we are discussing our lovely four-legged furry friends, there are a number of us who have dogs. I mean, if you come to Dorset, why wouldn't you, really? It's the place to be. So I have signed a dispensation recording that, and if everybody else would just like to mention the same, because I know we have a number of dogs. Laura. And she's gotten right from, and she's got a very big dog. Thank you. Sherry.
Yes, Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Hillports and Upper Tarrants Ward, also a dog owner, and having sought advice from the monitoring officer, I have been granted a dispensation to participate in this debate. Thank you.
Excellent. Ryan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ryan Hope, Western Ward in Weymouth. I also have a dispensation signed by the monitoring officer to allow me to take part in that item of the agenda.
Councillor Rowe, Coal Hill and Wimborne Minster East. I have a dog, and for my well-being, I have signed a dispensation so that I can take part in this item. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, lovely Les by my side.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. I've sought a dispensation which has been granted as I'm also a dog owner. Thank you.
And we can move on. Chairman's update. Now, I have to report back on the digital infrastructure strategy that I've been given a very lovely nearly two-page report on it, which I won't read out, but we will. I'll just summarise it really. Following our last meeting in April, where we were looking at developing a Dorset digital infrastructure strategy, we agreed that there would be workshops taking place. So there was an elected members workshop on the 22nd of May. We had 4 members of this committee join that group. Council officers were invited to a workshop on the 26th of May, and a venue's been booked for the local community and business workshop on the 16th of June. Youth service have been consulted, and an online supplier workshop is planned. The summary of the emerging themes so far, that there are a number. It was all very interesting, but there's lots of things that we need to go through that need to be discussed and worked through. So what I suggest is that Lindsay will put the whole of this report in with the minutes of the meeting, if that's okay. Other than that, I have nothing further to say. Public participation, we don't have any questions. Question from members, we don't have any, so we'll move straight on to item 7, which is our dog-related public spaces protection order. Presenting, we've got Janet Moore, our Service Manager for Environmental Protection. Take it away, Janet.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. My name is Janet Moore, and I'm the Environmental Protection Service Manager, and the regulation of dogs in terms of the PSPO fits within my service. A dog-related public space protection order is a means by which we encourage responsible dog ownership by putting restrictions in place that reduce the risk of dog fouling, dog biting and other aggressive behaviours. At the same time, we need to recognise the welfare needs of dogs and also the positive contribution that they bring to society. And if we get the balance right, we provide public spaces that are safe and welcoming for everybody to enjoy. The current Public Space Protection Order expires at the end of the year, and this report outlines our options going forward and also the requirement to hold a public consultation, which helps informs the content of the new or extended order. The last consultation was held in 2020, at which point we received over 8,500 responses, which I think was one of the biggest that Dorset Council has ever had. So we know it's an emotive and passionate subject, and it's really important that we get this process right and make it as far-reaching and inclusive as possible and as easy to use as possible. It's been developed in conjunction with our consultation officer, with oversight from the legal team, and we've also produced a comms plan to sit aside it as well. In drafting the contents of the consultation, we've defined the perimeters in order to avoid generating unworkable proposals or raising unreasonable expectations. The rationale really is to transfer as much of the provision of the existing order into the new order, whilst offering choice about those key areas that continue to divide opinion. The questions are broadly based around 4 areas, and it must be noted that unless we ask the questions in the public consultation, we can't include those within the new order. Okay. So those areas are the requirement to remove and properly dispose of dog faeces, restricting access for dogs on marked sports pitches and enclosed children's play areas, having dogs on leads in specific spaces such as formal gardens or cemeteries, or as directed by an authorised officer, and it also includes the lead length requirement as well, and the restrictions on our named beaches and adjacent pathways and walkways. We've undertaken a review on the number and types of complaint since enactment of this current order. In the first year, we received 65 complaints, either about breaches of the restriction or the order itself, and 60% of that were about front town beach at Lyme Regis and the off-peak restriction. In the second year, we received 31 complaints. They were more geographically dispersed and about the different types of complaints, for instance, signage. This year, we've only received 11 complaints. So we believe that the restrictions are now well embedded. People actually know about the controls in their area. Signage is displayed in prominent places. We've also got information on our website for visitors and holiday makers. Officers have received good feedback. People feel that they've dealt with services well, introducing new signage or adjusting the signage where necessary and increasing supportive patrolling as required. However, enforcement still remains an issue. Observing active breaches or getting information, names and addresses of people in situ is still really, really difficult. We are a multifunctional team, so we have limited resources to put to patrolling. Having said that, though, we have diverted some of our resources within that team. So at the moment, we have one officer whose sole job is to do patrolling and look at complaints. We don't underestimate the value, though, of our officers being out there and talking to members of the public. The visible presence is just great. You know, they talk about training, about microchipping, about neutering, all that sort of stuff. And actually just having the regulations there, you know, is a deterrent anyway. Without the regulations, then we don't have a number of offences, for instance, dog fouling. There remains 3 key areas, though, where we receive most comment and complaint. So the first is about front town beach at Lyme Regis and the off-peak restriction. So during the summer months, dogs are banned from the beach from the 1st of May to the 30th of September, which is in line with most of our popular beaches, and the same regulation applies. However, outside of that period, there's an on-lead restriction, and that's not the same. That they're unique in that respect in terms of Dorset. And we put that in place because the town council wanted a total year-round ban, and we sort of saw it as a compromise. However, we do receive complaints, or in the first year, definitely we received a lot of complaints, importantly from people with limited mobility, who felt the adjacent beaches were either too slippery in wet weather or unstable because there are lots of pebbles on those beaches as well. And the gradient within the town means that there's limited, if any, other area for them to go and exercise their dog off lead, sorry. We did try and, with the help of the town council, lay some mat in to try and alleviate this issue, but to be honest with you, that didn't really work because of the tidal currents and it got covered in sand and all that sort of stuff. So it's for that reason that we're including in this consultation a question specifically about whether people want to retain this off-peak restriction. And we will engage with our Equality and Diversity and Inclusion reference group to seek advice from them as well on this matter. So Weymouth have indicated that they want to change their potential, exercise area from near the pavilion end to between the Jubilee Clock and the Old Pier during the summer months. So again, we've just received that feedback and we have got questions in the consultation, but it might be worth just amending those questions slightly to reflect their requests more accurately, and we welcome councillor opinion on that. Okay. We're also seeking views on opening the beaches for dog exercise outside of the restriction times. We've had feedback from the Kennel Club and others who reference Cornwall, and in Cornwall many of their beaches allow dogs in the summer period on before 10 o'clock in the morning and after 6 o'clock, so between the restriction period. Of course, this gives more flexibility to the dog owners, but increases the risk of fouling, and also there could be an additional burden on resources by making sure that these times are adhered to. Our current restrictions are actually in line with our neighbouring coastal authorities, BCP and East Devon. They have the same restrictions as us at the moment. So as part of the requirements of the consultation, we need to have direct communication with a number of stakeholders, and they are Dorset Police, Police and Crime Commissioner, town and parish councils and other landowners, for instance, National Trust and Natural England. So we're undertaking that consultation. Other stakeholders, we have direct consultation with all Dorset councillors, dog groups, Kennel Club, that sort of thing, Dogs Trust. And obviously equality and diversity is very important in terms of this consultation. Along with the online consultation, we'll have paper copies in all our libraries, and paper copies will be available on request. So hopefully that's covering everybody. So the consultation will run from the 14th of June, just over a week's time, until the 25th of August, after which the findings report and a draft order will come back to this committee in October. We then go on to the Cabinet for agreement and approval on the 7th of November. After that, we need an appeal period of 6 weeks. So hopefully we'll be able to enact the new or the extended order by the 1st of January. So we ask members to agree to our recommendations, which are to support the provision of the dog-related public spaces protection order from the expiry of the current order, either by extension or by a new order, introduction of new order, or to consider and comment on the content of the required public consultation document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, that was very thorough. Can I just ask you, Janet, how do you think you can balance the views of the town council as against all of the residents who might want one thing and the town council something else? How will you do that?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I guess it depends on the feedback from the consultation, really, because obviously we look at the numbers of people who are requesting a certain proposal or opposed to a certain issue, and then we balance that against the town council. What's enforceable, what works for us in terms of resources. So we balance all that sort of information. Yeah.
Les.
Thank you, Chair. Janet, there's a couple of comments in here. What is about irresponsible dog ownership? And I just wonder whether that should be clarified in the report, because to me, a dog running free is natural, what I've had. But to some people, irresponsible dog behaviour may be other things.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure. What is irresponsible dog ownership?
Yes.
Well, it's where an owner doesn't have adequate control over their dog or allows their dog to do something which is antisocial.
I get that and understand that what you mean, but it's not actually written in the report.
Is that something we can just
Yeah.
a little bit?
Okay.
Because as a dog owner, we all want to tackle and antisocial behaviour in that respect.
Okay, we can define that.
Ryan, you were first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Ryan Hope, Western Ward in Weymouth. I will also just declare that I'm a member of Weymouth Town Council, because it's been mentioned in some of their views. And I've received, since this item went onto the agenda and become public, I've received so many emails, because we've got a fabulous group in Weymouth called Dog Social, who really champion responsible dog ownership, and very kindly put me as a contact point for them to send their information to. So I've been inundated. So I was really pleased to hear the idea around not only Weymouth Town Council's suggestion last time about relocating the dog area, which I personally didn't agree with, but it was what the council wanted. And I would like to see that included in the consultation, so that if it is a preferred option, we can proceed on it without having to go back out onto consultation on that option. The other thing I'd like to look at is actually the period of restriction on Weymouth Beach, because I quite often see photos during the restricted periods of empty beaches. And dog walking is such an important part of our local economy in Weymouth, because people come with their dogs. We've got dog-friendly hotels, caravan sites, accommodations, and when they come, they spend money. They stop at our cafes and kiosks on the beach. They buy ice creams. They have a whole day. So I don't want to see dogs running through the beach at our busy peak seasons, because it's just impractical. And I think even the restricted area, sometimes in the summer, the dog shouldn't be down there because it's so busy. There is nowhere to exercise your dog. So I would like to actually see the exclusion time shortened, maybe just to include June, July, August, because that would cover the holiday periods during what I call class as beach weather, with the half term and then the summer, as well as that exclusion point from 6 till 10. So it is cooler in the evenings, and it's safe to take your dog out, and the beach is less empty. People could take their dogs for a walk during those periods. And whilst I consider the points on enforcement, I have to be honest and say dog enforcement is non-existent by this council. We do not have the resources, and it's something this committee mentioned 3-4 years ago when last discussing these orders. There's not the resources you've got within your team to cover the whole of Dorset. We're lucky that we've got really good connections in this case with our towns and parishes, a lot of them who have done the enforcement training and have the rights to issue tickets and do a lot of awareness, as well as these groups I've already mentioned that do a lot of publicity for us on these orders. So yeah, 3 points I'd like to see included is the option of a change location for Weymouth Town Council as per their last submission. a slightly different time on the exclusion areas, and I'm talking mainly to Weymouth because I know Weymouth. I'm not sure other members may have views elsewhere. And the timings to say that actually even while the restrictions are in place, during the evenings you could exercise your dog in those areas. And the other thing is, if I could just ask for clarification, why have we got in the survey, and I know you touched on this, do we think that clearing up dog fouling should remain as part of the order? Surely that's a no-brainer. We want every dog owner to clear up its mess. I'd rather that not be in there, because it should just be a given and in the order.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying. Every responsible dog owner does clear up after their dog, but unfortunately there are some that just don't. They're walking ahead and the dog's way behind or whatever. Janet, did you want to come back on those points?
Thank you, Chair. The three key points that you raised actually are in the consultation, so thank you for that. We do have a question about extending, about the period when the restrictions apply. We do have a question about the timing, and we do have a question about where the exercise area will be. In terms of dog fouling, we need it within the consultation, because as I think I tried to explain, unless it's in the consultation, we can't actually put it in the order. And if we don't put it in the order, then we don't have an offence. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, did you want to come back?
I just want to be perfectly clear, because the last consultation that went out where people put different suggestions in the order, and there's no defined questions on those points there, it's just said, would you like change, make a suggestion. When it came to making the order, we were told we had to stick with what was in, not this order, but the last consultation. We had to stick to it, because if we vastly changed from what was consulted, we'd have to go out to consultation again. And that's one wondering, maybe it's worth seeking advice there from Jonathan, that do we need to define those questions as a question, can we do that? Or if it comes back on popular opinion through the alternative suggestions, whether or not we can do that. I just don't want to have to. If too much change from what's being consulted on comes back, will we have to go out to reconsultation? Where that's a specific question in the consultation, then it's being consulted on as an option.
Thank you, Chair. We'll take the discussion away from today's meeting, and any changes to the consultation will liaise with our legal colleagues to make sure that they're sound. What we want to try and avoid is a situation where we bring back lots of information to committee. My apologies. And we're not able to make a decision from the information because it's not specific enough. So you're absolutely right, Councillor. The questions do need to be able to... I'm doing my best. We do need to be able to use the information back from the consultation to shape the draft order so that members can see some clear recommendations. So we will make sure with legal colleagues that the questions enable us to do that. It's a very popular consultation. We'll have a lot of responses back, and we need to be able to manage that information well.
Thank you. Sherry, you were next.
Thank you very much. A very quick question, I think, to Janet. When we discussed this previously, I had some concerns about the lead length being 6 foot. I personally felt that that was quite short if you had a very small dog and you weren't very mobile. You're from here to the dog, it's quite a short lead. But we went with that. Did you get any feedback or any complaints about lead length? Did anybody raise it with you at all?
I don't remember receiving any complaints about the lead length.
No, okay, so that answers my question. Nobody else seemed very concerned about it, so thank you for that.
Where are we? Laura, did you want to come in? No, you didn't. It was okay, that's absolutely fine then, in which case. Val.
Thank you, Chairman. Val Apothecary, Gillingham Ward. Very interesting, Janet. We're all interested. I don't actually own a dog, but I do love them, like we all do. And we all want this consultation to be right. So it's really, I just wanted to check facts. I've got on Appendix B that the consultation ends on the 23rd of August, and I believe you stated the 26th. Only I will be promoting this amongst my community. I don't want to get everybody going and then they discover that it's closed before we realise. Thank you.
Okay, we can get that tied up. That's absolutely fine. Tony, Councillor Coombs.
Good morning, Chairman. Tony Coombs, Verwood Ward. I was a dog owner in the past, although I haven't been for many years. I don't want to comment too much on the coastal issues because I don't live near the coast and it wouldn't be fair, but from my own previous experience, I used to enjoy going down out of season with the dog on the beach. My only concern is allowing, as has been requested, sort of out of hours during peak season, is that if all dog owners were responsible and did pick up, it wouldn't be an issue, but they're not. And that would be my only concern about allowing more during peak season onto the beach. But that leads me on to my own parochial comment. On page 33, in paragraph 13, it talks about sports pitch restrictions, and namely Potton Park. Potton Park is our large area of playing fields where we have a lot of football and a lot of cricket. The pitches are marked out, but because the public have used that open space for so many years, when these restrictions came in, everybody ignored them. They just carry on as they've always carried on. And anytime you go down there are dogs off the lead, there are people not looking at what their dogs are doing. And then, you know, before you have a match, you have all the parents line up and go down the pitch and do the poo pick. And kids still slip over in it. So I've been there as a parent, I've been there as a dog owner, and now, having neither under my wing anymore, I still see it going on 20 years later. And for me, it's about how do we enforce this? We've already heard that there isn't the capacity. I don't see anything happening in my own local area. And until we have a proper designated let your dog run free area that is easy to access and is well signposted, residents will continue to let their dogs run free because it's a large, flat area that is great for exercising a dog on off the lead. And we will never, ever stop them from doing that. So that's my challenge. How do we deal with this?
Challenge, Janet. Any ideas?
No, we are aware that that is an issue and it's actually on our hotspot to monitor. But as I say, there's issues being there at the right time, isn't there? But I will take that back. As I said, we've got we've got some additional resource to do some additional monitoring down there, and I'm wondering whether to have a conversation with the antisocial behaviour team to potentially use a mobile CCTV. Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about the consultation and the fact that paper copies are going to be put in the libraries, it would be very helpful for somewhere like Potton where there is a pavilion, where the dog walkers are, if we could have paper copies there when the pavilion is open serving teas and coffees, because it's there when people are using the site. And the other one would be where parish and town councils have got help centres or offices that are open to the public, to again have them available there, because people are always dropping in, and the more we put it in front of people, the more they're likely to pick it up and hopefully respond. So that was the first one. And the second one, talking about training for town and parish councils. I know in my own area, there is not the capacity or necessarily the ability of those staff employed by the town council, because it's a small staff base, that would be willing or have the capacity to do that training and take on some of that enforcement. So again, there's a challenge at the parish level. So just a couple of comments.
Thank you. Can I just ask, actually, are there dog poo bins in that area? Could people, people, yes, there should be, but are there receptacles for it?
Lots.
Thank you. Maria, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Rowe, Coal Hill and Wimborne Minster East. Thank you for the information and the presentation. My question is about if we're looking at restrictions on for dogs running free and irresponsible dog ownership. Why are dogs allowed to be off the lead on pavements? And I've had quite a few problems with that, where dogs just free on pavements, running into people's gardens, potential hazard to traffic, children. So it just seems a nonsense that they're allowed off leads on pavements. Thank you.
Councillor Bedo.
Thank you. Laura Bedo, Cabinet Member for Culture and Communities. I think I can sort of partially answer Councillor Rowe's question. This order that we're discussing today focused on the spaces rather than the dogs, so the dog's behaviour within the spaces. Outside of that, it would be really difficult, I think, to apply a PSPO to every single pavement. I totally understand what you're saying. But we're looking at our public spaces rather than general dog behaviour. As an aside, though, it's worth noting, and this I think comes back to Councillor Frye's earlier point about clarifying what antisocial behaviour with dogs is. Forget about PSPOs for a second. I have a dog. His recall is not 100%. He is never off the lead because it is actually... I'm not sure about the legalities, but I believe that unless your dog has perfect recall 100% of the time, your dog should never be off the lead, wherever it is. So, you know, we use rentable fields, secure dog walking fields and things like that. He has a 10-metre lead for exercise daily. But your point about pavements and things like that, unless you can recall your dog, and that means have control of your dog 100% of the time, your dog should never be off the lead anywhere. But this particular paper is about those spaces rather than pavements. I hope that's helpful a bit.
Yeah, thank you for that. I've followed it up and it is perfectly legal for dogs to be off the lead.
Okay, right. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to support Councillor Coombs' comments there. Having been sons that play rugby and on the pitches, I've had to walk the pitches before we start playing, and it's a horrible task. There are many irresponsible dog owners who don't pick up after their dog, and I pick up on Councillor Hope's points that why should it be in the order? Unfortunately, it needs to be in there because without it in there, we can't enforce it. It's a sad indictment in life, and we need that there. Do we have the opportunity of providing town and parish councils with appropriate signage, because that may be something when the new order comes into place, that we could supply new distinctive signs that they can apply for to put up. And I've got a couple of other points in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jefferson, do you want to come in before we go back to Janet?
Yes, I wanted to make a slightly broader point about enforcement and resources. We're talking, I appreciate, specifically about the public spaces protection orders, but the question of dog fouling is very central to this. Dog fouling outside of these areas, all across the rural areas, is a really, really major problem for residents. There is no possibility that we will ever have enough enforcement officers to take care of this in every footpath and every lane in Dorset. So enforcement in that sense is, you know, that's not ever going to be available. So what I would like to it's not really relevant to this paper, but this is my opportunity to say it. Could we just get onto the radar that we need to have a proper look, I think, as a council, about what other support Dorset Council could, what further support Dorset Council can give to rural communities where a public spaces protection order and the idea of a dog warden is not relevant, but what else we can provide. Parish councils generally have to pay for their own signs. I would just like to ask a question about whether that has to be the case. Also, it's quite difficult to get more poo bins because there's a difficulty with regard to emptying poo bins. Could we be a little more flexible about that as a community, as a council? We haven't moved on very much in the support that we give to rural areas, and I think it's time perhaps we could bring that back to this committee at a later date. I know it's a bit marginal for this paper, but I have to say it when I can. Thank you.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Bedo is jumping up and down in her seat.
Thank you. Bins also come under my portfolio. You can put dog poo in any bin, and we did a big campaign around stickers on bins that basically said, because some people who are really responsible kind of used to go up to a public bin and think, oh, it's not a dog poo bin, I should find a dog poo bin. You can use any bin, and we've done a sticker campaign saying that, go and say, welcome your dog poo. Where there are no public bins, but it's a perhaps very out of the way dog walking space, ideally you take it home. The reality is people enjoy decorating trees with the bags, carefully clearing up into the bag and then decorating the hedgerows, which is particularly beautiful. So we do try and look flexibly at where there's, for example, where there's a sang, where there's a place that we know that a lot of dog owners go, then, we will always try to look flexibly, but the general rule of thumb is we're not so keen on providing specific dog waste bins unless there are no public bins there because of collection rounds and things like that.
Thank you. I think that part of the problem is that putting a dog waste bin in an area where there is no other bin on, let's just say Oakford Hill, for example, which is a wonderful dog walk, but there are no bins at all. And the parish council won't install a dog bin there because it will cost £220 to empty it for the year. And that's where you get the problems. I wonder if there's anything we can do to beef that area up at all. Do you think, Janet, could we do anything? Let's have a lovely positive attitude.
If I could comment, Chair, as Councillor Bedo has said, the provision of bins is difficult and costly as well. So it's not just provision of the bin; it's the emptying where the costs are embedded, and the obviously budgets are really tight. Particularly really tight at the moment in terms of additional bins. If there is, if we see a site which is really logical for an additional bin, we will talk to waste services. We will work with them to see if we could reduce a bin from an area which is less used and reposition it into an area which we think will be more used. So we do have that liaison with waste services. It's exactly the same as bins in lay-bys. Should we have bins in lay-bys? Does it encourage dumping by the side of the bins, or, as Councillor Bedo has said, really should people take their rubbish home with them, including dog waste as well?
It's a tricky one. Councillor Jesperson, do you want to come back?
Yeah, just to say, I absolutely appreciate that budgets are limited. Budgets are finite. As a council, we can choose what we spend our finite budget on. And so while I absolutely respect and support everything that you currently do, my plea really was that not you, but we as a council could think more flexibly about this, because for many of us who look after rural wards, that other than road safety, there is no more important issue for many of our residents. And saying that we don't have enough money to spend on it, our residents would perhaps say, so I'm saying on their behalf, well, perhaps you should put more money onto this because this is what matters to us. That's the point I'm making. But I absolutely support what you do with the money that you've got, which is really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Yeah. Councillor Fry, Dorchester West, and I've been to Weymouth on a couple of occasions, and I'm Dorchester Town Council, I'm not Weymouth, I know Councillor Hope mentions that. And I found it really useful having that end of the pier to take the dog to walk, run in, because you've effectively got two sides of the dog-free area fenced off already with the wall around there. So I'm slightly surprised that Weymouth Town Council want to move the dog-free area into the middle, where the control of any animal would be a little bit harder to do, because it's running between people, potentially there. That's just my observation, because that end of the wall down by the pavilion works really well down there. I have some reservations over opening up for certain hours of the day all through the year for dogs. Although I'm 100% in favour of the people walking and the dogs and the exercise, as we've already said, there are irresponsible people out there who won't pick up after their dog. And are we saying that's a risk that we're prepared to take, that one person every day doesn't pick up their dog poo, and then some poor child goes and falls in it later on the day when they're enjoying the time on the beach? And I think that's a risk too much for us to take. We should be protecting our young people because we know there's irresponsible dog owners out there.
But at the end of the day, we've got the consultation and we can ask all of those questions, can't we? Janet, did you want to come back on anything so far? Because I've just got a couple of little questions then.
Can I just come back on 2 points? Firstly, signage. Yes, so we supply signage. Towns and parishes do pay for it at the moment, but we've got all different types of signs we can supply. Secondly, that was a really good point you made in terms of having the paper copies at more local areas. So what we'll do is we'll email all the towns and parishes and ask them if they want paper copies and perhaps a more appropriate place for them to put them. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Do you think there's any way we could actually beef up our signage and make it really in your face? Like, if you do this, you are in trouble. Can we beef it up? Can we make it even more?
I think we're confined. I think there's some legal requirement about what signage should look like. So I think we're confined by that, but I'll go back and check.
Did you want to come back then, Val?
Yeah, just on that signage issue, I know the signage we've got, the small ones, they get ripped down, they get defaced. So making it bigger and you know, more attractive will probably incur more costs just for the same fate to happen. But what, again, Weymouth Town Council did is they actually got the floor stencils and sprayed it onto the floor. This area is dogs' exercise areas off lead. Not been touched, absolutely brilliant, lasted really well, so that's an option as well. Just picking up on the point that Councillor Coombs made around having the surveys available at locations where dog owners are, we also got to remember that this consultation is not for dog owners because they're going to have views on where they think dogs should be exercised and not also. But maybe if we can get some business cards printed with QR codes or something or links and give them to local shops where dog owners go, and they can put them in the bags, and when they're in there shopping to say, fill in the consultation, give us your views. But probably that's one more for comms to consider as a way of consultating. But picking up, I don't want to get too much into the content of the report because we are at the consultation stage, but I've got to say, I walk on Weymouth Beach in the off-peak season 2-3 times a week, and I very rarely see dog feces left on the beach. It is picked up, and we've got to remember the small minority shouldn't ruin it for the large of the most responsible dog walkers.
Councillor Pothcray, did you want to come in?
It was just clarification on the consultation end date. Did we manage to find that one out, please?
We'll clarify that. I haven't got the papers to hand, sorry, in front of me. So.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions from me. Question 2B, is this an official response? I think some members of the public might get a little bit confused as to what you would classify as official. I don't know if you just need a little something there. Can I just check Studland Beach? Now, that's National Trust. So who determines Studland? Is that National Trust or is that us? And on the option, question 11, you've got between after 8 and before 1900 hours. I wonder if we could be a little bit more flexible with possible times so that perhaps dogs could be exercised throughout the year, or between May and September, say before 9 and after 6 in the evening. I just wondered if that could be a little bit looser there.
Thank you, Chair. We'll pick those up when we go through the consultation as a result of today's meeting. Make sure it's really clear, and if we can help there, we will.
Sorry, can I just come back about the Studland issue? I think it is owned by the National Trust, but it's managed by Natural England. So the final decision will be us, but obviously landowners are able to sort of, in essence, accept themselves out. So it doesn't become an offence if they don't want us to actually make it breach on their land.
Final decision is ours. Should we put Studland in under the beaches because it's not currently there, or do you want to deliberately leave it out?
I think it's not within the beach element because it's dog on lead rather than a prohibition or a ban. So it's actually within section question 7. Yeah.
Doesn't actually say leading on to the beach Studland, so you are including the beach as the beach there rather than the access.
Yeah, so anything to do with Studland is actually in question 7 because it's about access and dogs on leads.
Need to clarify.
So will we have the possibility to discuss or have the question on Studland, for example, that exercising dogs without a lead before, say, 9 o'clock in the morning and after 6 o'clock in the evening between May and September? Possibility or not? No. James.
Oh, sorry. Well.
Councillor Alford, you've been so quiet there. Come on in.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm Councillor Alford from Egerton Ward, a rural ward, and I've heard earlier from Councillor Jesperson, and I thoroughly agree with the points she makes about the rural context, which really does matter. I've got a miscellany of points just from the reports we've been given. I start at 2.6, and we talk about training provided for parish councils, and I wonder whether that will resume. I'm sure there will be some parish councils that would appreciate that. I also wonder whether, for the purpose of the consultation, there will be something that we will publish, which will be our reasoned statement of the achievements of the existing PSPO and where it's worked well, where we think it may be deficient. I think that is potentially a valuable benefit. I'm on 3.6 now. Oh yes, this is stakeholders' advance warning. I haven't yet seen any interest in the subject that parish councils are showing, so I'm not sure how well aware they are of this consultation, but I'd certainly be happy to give publicity and promotion to it. I think that would be helpful. I've nearly finished, I think. I've come on the subject of visitors. How, we talked about signage and whatever, and that, I understand that, but the fundamental question is, how do visitors know about the existence of a PSPO? Because in the normal course, they wouldn't be asking about that. And so you've got to make it quite clear to them, I think, that there's something they should conform to. And then my final point, which is certainly a concern in the ward that I represent, which is about dogs running loose and worrying agricultural livestock. And it is not just sheep, they even chase after cows as well. And this is the most distressing experience for the owners. Now, I'm not convinced that the PSPO by itself will stop that. I do wonder, though, whether suitable words in the right place in a PSPO are a kind of prerequisite for other action that might be taken. So I think I would just like to register that as a significant point I'd like to see addressed in some way. Thank you.
Thank you. I think on your point with worrying livestock, mostly I guess that takes place on private farmland. So that would be down to the farms for signage. Can I come back to you for...
Thank you, Chair. If I can just run through quickly some of Councillor Alford's points which we're grateful for. We're certainly keen to work with town and parish councils to provide training and in some cases authorise officers. I did hear the comments earlier about the resources available to parish and town councils, and not every council has the ability to do that, but we are available to provide some training and awareness to parish and town council staff. It's a really good suggestion to look at the what's worked well, what's worked less well in the current order, and we'll make sure that that is included when we bring the consultation results back to you, and also a draft of the new PSPO, and we may be able to sort of put some overview into the consultation as well. Prior awareness of the consultation. I think that we have been talking to.
Yeah, an email was sent out about a month ago to all towns and parish councils. But obviously, when we go online, we'll be doing more comms with towns and parish councils anyway.
The issue about visitors is really important. And I think to residents and businesses in the Dorset Council area, they are more likely to be aware of the controls in the Public Space Protection Order. And we do have a tremendous visitor influx during the spring and summer months. There is, of course, the signage, and we do need to be careful with signage about creating too much signage, because people we switch off from it, and it can be quite obstructive in terms of the visual amenity of our areas as well. So we do have to be careful with signage, but we will make it as impactful as possible. We also use QR codes on our signage, which are really helpful, so that visitors can scan the QR code into their mobile device, and it'll take them to a map of the area where dogs can be exercised and what the restrictions are. So I think that's quite helpful for visitors. And of course, the Dorset Council website has all of that information too. With respect to livestock, it's a really tragic situation that these incidents do keep occurring, unfortunately. Whilst it's mainly a police enforcement issue, we do work closely with Dorset Police around intelligence. Our Trading Standards Service work closely with police on animal welfare matters, and I know that our animal welfare and dog control officers also work very closely with Dorset Police. There is a blimey, I'm in trouble with my words today. There is a thank you. One of those. There is a rural crime group chaired by Dorset Police, which does have other agencies on it, and the issue of livestock worrying does feature quite heavily on their agenda, and we are always looking for best practice elsewhere to see what other areas are doing around this issue, and making sure that intelligence is shared between agencies about practices that might be going on that can sometimes lead to attacks on livestock as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, I think lastly we have Councillor Jesperson, and then hopefully we can wind this up.
Yes, just very briefly then, just thank you very much for that. As you were talking and as Councillor Alford was talking, it occurred to me that it would be really helpful to look again at this whole section on the Dorset Council website, starting off with saying, acknowledging the role of dogs in people's lives, saying how dogs are really welcome, visitors with dogs are really welcome, and then going on to make it really clear all the information that we've discussed today, who you report issues to, the contact detail for the police rural crime and wildlife crime team, bring that all together, because that would be, and then have your QR codes going to that section. That would be so helpful for parish councils, the small parish councils, who I get phone calls and emails constantly. Who do I report this to? What do I do about it? Because it's not a thing that's happening every week and they don't know who to turn. If you could bring all that together in one place on the website, that will be really, really helpful, because it's all there, but just make it easy. Thank you.
Are we able to add that as a recommendation to that, so that it's automatically done once the consultation is completed? Are you happy with that? Fine. We're all happy. Marvellous. So we're happy with the recommendations, but with all the notes that we've gone through. Oh, Councillor Alford, come on in again.
It is very easy for people to get into the countryside through public rights of way. So they can take their dogs, and once the dogs are out in the open, these sometimes are very difficult to control. So I'd welcome anything that is being done, being given greater publicity, because it sounds like, you know, the story that you were telling, Graham, not many people know of that. So more publicity would be immensely helpful.
I think that's all noted. Right, we've got the recommendations with the further recommendation that more publicity or special space, if you like, is given to it on the website once the consultation comes back and is approved and goes forward to Cabinet. So without further ado, we shall move on. Item 8 is our work programme. It's just included for information, and the Cabinet forward plan. Does anybody want to speak or got any comments, any thoughts? Right, Lindsay's just reminded me we're going to set up an informal meeting to actually look at the work programme, and yes, okay. That's lovely. Is that all noted? Fine, thank you. Item 9, urgent items. There are none. So I move to exempt business, and I wonder if I could have a recommendation. Thank you.
I propose we go into exempt business now.
Okay, we'll just break for a couple of minutes while we turn off the live stream, and we will reconvene in a